Hi, I'm Mark DeJesus, and I love helping people to experience health and fruitfulness in their relationships. And one of the biggest areas is in the area of communication that we have the biggest breakdown. A relationship usually breaks down to the level of how two people are able to communicate with each other. We have to understand that with every relationship problem, there's usually a communication issue. And a rejection mindset loves to infiltrate our communication pathways. You see, when a rejection mindset is in operation, healthy communication doesn't stand a chance. This is because a rejection mindset twists and distorts communication so that we're not landing with each other in the power and fruitfulness we can have. I mean, come on, we've all been there. We've all been in those situations where communication just got out of hand, where what was being said, what was being heard got twisted. It happens in marriages all the time, with what you're trying to say doesn't get heard. And then you're going back and forth and you're arguing about something that has nothing to do with the beginning issue that you wanted to talk about in the first place. Ever been in those conflicting situations, those conflict resolution types of meetings that the more you talk, the worse it gets? I mean, come on, we've all been in those discussions that turned into hours and hours of exhaustion that didn't go anywhere. Ever have those communication moments where you're trying to say something and no matter what you say, it gets twisted? I mean, even something as simple as, "You look really nice today," gets interpreted as, "Oh, so I didn't look nice yesterday?" And then you try to recover from that, and it seems the more you talk, the worse things get. Have you ever tried to bring people together and discuss an issue only to find it just got worse and worse and worse? That's because there's an interference in the midst, not allowing clear heart-to-heart vulnerable communication take place. Ever find that when you're talking to a certain person, no matter what happens, you end up in some kind of lose-lose situation where you're trying to get somewhere, but you always end up taking steps back? And one of the biggest reasons that communication doesn't flow fruitfully in the way that it could be is because of our filter. You see, we're not really hearing what's being said. We're hearing our personal filtration of what is being said. Now, that filter looks for certain things in the communication, and it may be based on brokenness of the past that we're anticipating, we're guarding ourselves from. The problem is, we're not really hearing what's actually being said. So someone talks and says something to us. It hits our filter, and something in that hits our damaged filter. And then we relay back out of that damaged filtration of what we heard, which isn't really what was being said, but we're coming back from what we interpreted as being said. And now the conversation is going on a completely different path, and it's moving away from health and into worse and worse places. A rejection mindset is the biggest distorter and damager of our filtration of how we hear. But with rejection in the midst, the communication is already damaged because there's an anticipation of rejection. There's an anticipation of there being something negative that they have to put up their dukes. And so what happens, it becomes this spiritual, emotional dodgeball match where you're just throwing back and forth at each other and nothing's healed until someone decides, I'm putting this down and I am no longer engaging in this back and forth because I want to have honest communication. I want to also have loving and humble communication so that I can truly communicate my heart and see our relationship improve. See, we have to understand, if I'm the devil, all I need to do is get into your communication pathways, get you in dysfunctional communication patterns with people. And then don't even bother. Just isolate yourself and remove and never get to that healthy conclusion, those healthier places. And then I've got you isolated. And if I've got you isolated, you've lost the power of what other people around you can do to add value to your life. That's why you need to understand that the enemy is after our communication. You see, the reason the enemy hates communication is because he hates healthy relationship. And if he can divide and erode communication, he's going to destroy the quality of your relationship connections. That's why it's so important that we identify how we are filtering out our communications in our marriage, in our parenting, in our relationships, in our leadership capacities, so that we're improving how we relate to each other. Otherwise, our communication is going to be drained, we'll blame everyone else, and we'll live in certain cycles that keep repeating over and over and over again. You see, for the many people that I help and coach and consult with, there's usually certain themes that keep repeating in relationships over and over again. Why? Because the filter wants to follow you and create this continual theme of you experiencing limitation in your relationships. So we have to get sobered. We have to be aware. And what do? It starts first and foremost with you working on you. Me working on me. Each day allowing God to work on you on how you speak, how you come across, how you listen, how well you are listening. What is the filter by which you're doing relationships with? And allowing God to cleanse and heal those areas so you come less armed up in defense mechanisms already from the jump when you're interacting with relationships. You come ready for an openness, for there to be reasoning, for there to be healthy interaction, to give the conversation a chance for movement in a healthy direction. We also need to work on becoming better listeners. And ask yourself the question, when I engage conversation, what's the filter that is there that gets me in a defensive posture already before the conversation begins? What theme works in my life, in my communication, that I keep repeating over and over again, that I need to come to terms with, so that I'm not just saying, well, my relationships would get better if everyone else would change. Instead, be more empowered to work on yourself. Let God work on you, because that's all you can do. Look at your relationship patterns that are not going well, and look at what's the common denominator. And what's the common denominator in my life? What's the theme that I've come into agreement with that I can allow God to heal, so that I can create new patterns in my relationship, so that I can go to the next level? Do you shut down? Do you already feel that the world is against you? Do you feel that people are out to get you? Do you feel that people are just always out to hurt you? Do you feel that people never listen to you? They never acknowledge you? Do you always feel misunderstood? Do you feel that you have to overtalk? Do you feel that you shut down very quickly and don't allow people to speak? You cut people off in relationships. Do you feel like you have great discernment, but really your discernment is suspicion? See, all these things are only going to come about where we can awaken to truth by humbling ourselves. Otherwise, we'll stay in the same communication patterns and experience the same results. But I want to see you break free. That's why I love exposing the rejection mindset, because it's wanting to infiltrate your communication pathways so that you're not hearing what's really being said, and you're not speaking what can actually be said to breathe life and change into a circumstance. And I want to position you for victory in love, in identity, and in healthy relationships.